Hey guys, Chris here, and I am a Ukrainian Canadian. Today is October 27th, 2023, and let's get to the news happening in Ukraine, shall we? So let's go to the news because there's one really important update first from Avdiivka. This is where the intense fighting is currently ongoing. The Russians have launched a huge offensive in this direction since October 10th, so the Ukrainians have no choice but to defend this city. And so, right now, according to new articles and also United States, indicating that the Russians are now executing their own retreating soldiers as a result of these huge casualties. And we're talking about now up to 5,000 Russian soldiers dead, 2.5 weeks later after this offensive started in Avdiivka alone, and also 125 armored vehicles that were lost at the very, very least, and more than a battalion's worth of equipment. So these are huge losses for Russia. And obviously, as a result of that, a lot of soldiers are refusing orders. They're saying that this is just a suicide mission. They have no proper equipment. There's no leadership. There's no resources. There's no support. So they're refusing orders. But as we've seen in the past in the Soviet Union and Russia's history, they have been executing their own soldiers that were retreating, that were refusing orders. And so, this is no different now. And unfortunately, this is, I should say, fortunately, this is good for Ukraine because Ukraine now can see that there is poor morale within the Russians. They are refusing orders, so this is a very positive trend. But for it to be really meaningful, it would have to be in the thousands, not just a few hundred, Russian men that just refuse orders. It needs to be entire battalions that refuse orders. That would be meaningful. So we'll see. And another very positive thing for Ukraine in this direction is that the 47th Mechanized Brigade has come from the Orikhiv direction, from the southern direction in Zaporizhia, to reinforce the Ukrainian defenses in Avdiivka. So hopefully they'll be able to stabilize the situation. As far as I'm concerned, if we look at the map, the situation is pretty stable as the last few days. My last update was on Wednesday, but since Wednesday, Russia hasn't had any gains in the north, according to Deep State, and also no gains in the south, close to Vodyane. So these are the two pushes that Russia is doing right now, in Krasnohorivka and one in Vodyane. And in Krasnohorivka, the Russians want to get to Stepove and Berdichi. These are two villages that are crucial for a partial encirclement of Avdiivka from the north. So the Ukrainians cannot allow the Russians to do this push and be able to capture these two villages. And right now, the Russians have stalled at the railway line that kind of separates Stepove and Krasnohorivka. So hopefully, with the help of the 47th Brigade, they'll be able to continue holding the line here and really push out the Russians. And this is kind of the gray area right now, the massive territory called Terikon. So it's a very industrial, open area, lots of open fields, and so the Russians are easy targets for the Ukrainian artillery, tanks, and other sniper that are working and operating in the north as well. And in the south, it's pretty much the same situation. So the Russians have not really had any real pushes or real gains in the last few days. As you can see, it's been pretty much the same. As you can see, just this update on the 23rd, where they got a little bit more ground, since I believe this was where they put the flag on a slag heap in this direction. So you can see that for that, they paid a very hefty price. And hopefully the 47th Mechanized Brigade will be able to hold the line here. Additionally, for these Russian soldiers that are not executed in Avdiivka, some of them are being transported away to the Zaitsev detention facility, which is very close to the Russian border. And you can see that Zaitsev is a small little town. I believe it's right over here. And so this is where some of the refuseniks, as we call them, Russian soldiers that refuse orders, are being sent out. So if they're not tortured there, they're definitely executed there. So this is just showing you guys the lack of care that Russia as a government and as a society as well gives to these Russian soldiers, right? They're being dumped in here and forgotten about. And everybody else in Russia lives their lives thinking that they're doing something great and that their special military operation is going according to plan. The other thing that's not going according to plan for Russia is in the north. So this is another huge offensive that Russia's been has invested in the last few months. And again, they continue to replenish their forces here. There was another report a few days ago that, well, they're back to 100,000 soldiers in this direction, because guess what? They're right beside Russia. So the replenishment rate is much easier than, let's say, if it was much deeper in Donbass or in Zaporizhia, where they have to transport these troops a lot further. Whereas in here, it's very easy. You're, a few kilometers away from the Russian territory. So they have a direct road as well that connects this main front line around Kupiansk. And so what is not going according to plan for the Russians here is the fact that they're also trying to do huge pushes here, but there were intercepted phone calls between Russian soldiers. And in these phone calls, a lot of Russian soldiers were complaining that they can storm with 100, 200 soldiers, but a well-fortified Ukrainian position will just mouth through them. And some of these calls were saying that these positions were there were not that many Ukrainian soldiers in these bunkers, in these trenches, up to 8, and they were able to hold on these massive waves of Russian attacks. So this is very impressive. This shows you guys again the skills and the tenacity of the Ukrainian defenders. They've been able to hold this line for the last few months, despite the fact that Russia has a huge concentration of its own troops, weapons, and also artillery. They can easily fire their artillery from Russia and not being worried that Ukraine can answer, because Ukraine has been told many, many times before that this is a red line for the West. So if Ukraine does it, then it's not well seen, and this could, stop Ukraine's military assistance, which I see as a very big negative, because there's a lot of facilities, military facilities, that Ukraine could be hitting from its own territory in Russia, and they wouldn't have to even claim it's them, right? They could use reasonable doubt and say, well, it was Ivan that smoked too many cigarettes, right? I mean, that could be tactics. So that's why I'm saying that it's unfortunate that Ukraine still has to fight an unfair war where they're being told that they can't attack Russia, but Russia can do whatever they want in Ukraine, destroy as many cities, as many hospitals, as many schools as they want, without, really fearing reprisal from Ukraine. And you know that Ukraine only hits military infrastructure. We're only talking about Ukraine, if they're hitting Russia, to answer by only hitting military infrastructures, facilities that are producing and helping Putin's regime to build an army. So I think that's really important to note, that the Ukrainians are only hitting key important infrastructure in Russia. So that's the video for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed my updates. There was another little thing I wanted to mention that's kind of notable, is that in Crimea, Ukrainian deputy back in 2014 that was serving under Yanukovych's government, his name is Oleg Tsaryov, he was apparently shot twice today, somewhere in Crimea. And he was a member of the Party of Regents, Partia Regioniv, in 2014, which was the party that pretty much messed it all up for Ukraine. They were a pro-Russian party. Yanukovych was a Putin puppet, so he pretty much wanted to lean Ukraine into Russia's sphere. And so this Oleg Tsaryov was a member of his party, and so he defected to Russia's side after 2014, and he was pretty much shot. And now his status is unknown, but apparently it's critical. And so I see this as Putin's way of also cleaning up house. I think this was done on Russia's side because he's been actually criticizing a few days ago the Russian government, their actions, how they fumbled this offensive. And so I believe that this is just a result of Putin cleaning house of anyone speaking up against him. And you can see this fear in the television, the Russian-controlled media, where nobody's absolutely never criticizing Putin or Shoigu and Gerasimov anymore, as we've seen with Prigozhin and many other people that met an accident. This is what Putin is going to employ as a tactic. So I think that this Tsaryov guy died because he criticized Putin too much. And it's also cleaning up house of all these people that helped Putin basically start the Donbass war and also annexing Crimea. So I think that he's doing a purge of his own, like Stalin did when he came into power. So that's the video for today, guys. I hope you enjoy my update. Thank you again for your support. Thank you for listening. And please like my video, subscribe to my channel if you enjoy my content. And that's it for now. Slava Ukraini, ми переможемо!